move on then to the NATO summit, and that kicked off yesterday in The Hague. Just like the G7, it has a shortened format and there'll be no communique. The summit was supposed to be 3 days of meetings. These have been replaced with 2.5 hours during the course of today. The rest of the time is being spent in informal discussions, as we'll see in a minute. It's us against the world was the key message, with Mark Rutte saying, quote, "We meet at a truly historic moment with significant and growing challenges to our security as the world becomes more dangerous." The language is consistent right across the board here. Ally leaders will take bold decisions to strengthen our collective defence, making NATO a stronger, a fairer and a more lethal alliance. This will include a major new defence investment plan, raising the benchmark for defence investment to 5% of GDP, he said, a concerted effort to ramp up defence industry across the alliance, bringing not only greater security but also more jobs, and a continued focus on support for Ukraine, alongside the pursuit of a just and lasting end to Russia's war of aggression. The language from him is incredible. He went on to say, and once again, I'm saying this, in fact, and once again, he couldn't help himself because he said, all of this is essential to keeping our 1 billion citizens safe, because remember, that's the first role of government, right? This was a theme repeated several times in his opening remarks. And another key theme was the threat of a Russian invasion of NATO within 5 years or so. That's the claim anyway. Now, try not to laugh, but he said, quotes, "There's widespread agreement within NATO that at this moment today, if Russia would attack us, our reaction would be devastating, and the Russians know this." There you go. Now, Keir Starmer then, during this, went on to speak to French President Emmanuel Macron and German Chancellor Friedrich Merz on the sidelines of the NATO summit. This was yesterday evening. The readout that they published says that they agreed that now is the time for diplomacy and for Iran to come to the negotiating table. I'm sure Vanessa will have something to say about that in a second. On Gaza, Starmer demonstrated once again the lack of an original thought. And he said that the situation on Gaza is intolerable, that all sides need to work towards an urgent ceasefire. And on Ukraine, they were again banging the same old drum. No innovative ideas from these three stooges. More pressure on the Kremlin is what they said, including through further sanctions. There'll be no discussion between the three. There'll be more discussion between the three of them this evening, and I'm certain with equally riveting results. Now, also at the summit, Starmer announced that Britain, as Charles has alluded to, will be purchasing 12 new F-35A fighter jets, which can carry both nuclear and conventional weapons, and that Britain will join NATO's dual-capable aircraft nuclear mission. This decision is going to support, they said, 20,000 jobs in the F-35 program in the UK, with 15% of the global supply chain. The jets based in Britain, they said, supporting highly skilled jobs and opportunities for working people and delivering a defence dividend across the country. So what more could we ask for? But in other words, what they're saying is that jobs are reliant on killing people in perpetual war. So these new fast jets, as they're described, are going to be based at RAF Marham, with the government expected to procure 138 F-35s over the lifetime of the programme. And again, try not to laugh. They said that the procurement of these 12 F-35As, rather than choosing 12 F-35Bs as part of this current procurement package, will deliver a saving of up to 25% per aircraft for the taxpayer. So, yes. But here's the rub. As Charles mentioned, the nuclear weapons to be used on these aircraft are controlled by the United States. So how does that work, Charles?
Well, I think this is one of the very many big questions about all of this stuff that's being put out. I have absolutely no idea, and especially when one considers what's been happening in the Middle East over the last week or so. It should be a massive point of contention, and yet this is apparently just gone straight over the hurdle, and everybody seems to accept it.
Yes. Now, Sweden, moving on a little bit, but also related to the NATO conference, Sweden has now announced that starting on the 1st of July, its Navy will stop, inspect and potentially seize all suspected vessels transiting its exclusive economic zone, and is deploying the Swedish Air Force to back this up. since the combined maritime economic zones of Sweden and 3 Baltic states cover the whole of the central Baltic Sea, this amounts to a virtual threat to cut off all Russian trade exiting via the Baltic. This is according to Mats Nielsen on X. Now, he goes on to say that that would indeed be a very serious economic blow to Moscow. Just to put this into a bit of context, here's the map of the area. So I guess what we're talking about here is this particular region here. And of course, the biggest threat here as far as Russia is concerned, aside from the fact they can't get into the North Sea, is it would cut off potentially Russia's enclave of Kaliningrad, which, as you can see from the map there, has Poland, but also the Baltic states around it. It's effectively landlocked. So any attempt to restrict or stop Russia accessing that from the sea would mean that they are cut off from all resources. But to just point out Kaliningrad there with the arrow, if you just put that back on screen for a second. Thanks, Stephanie. So there we go. That's the situation. Now, this has been reported in non-mainstream news outlets like Energy News, but also here in Euromaidanpress. In Nielsen's comments, he went on to say this is the kind of action that's traditionally led to war. The Swedish assumption seems to be that the Russian Navy and Air Force in the Baltic are now so weak and so surrounded by NATO territory that there's nothing Moscow can do about this. However, it's very unlikely that the Swedes would take this step unless they also believe that in the event of a clash, Washington would come to Sweden's defence, even though the EU and Swedish decisions are made without US approval and are not strictly covered by NATO's Article 5. But Vanessa, surely this is why Sweden was bullied into becoming a NATO member in the first place. I don't know if you've got any thoughts on this.
No, I mean, it is extraordinary, but yes, I would agree that this is one of the reasons that Sweden was forced to join the cartel. Yeah.
Yes. Okay, well, let's come to you.